Hi folks, I'm Courtney Springer and I'm inside the House. Here to talk to you today about property tax reform and educational funding, two big topics in the Montana House this week. The first one, property tax reform. I'm going to be bringing a bill called the Right Back Act, and that's important. That's going to provide substantive, immediate property tax relief in the next coming cycle. Here's how it works. When we collect money through what's called the 95 mills, we do that throughout the state, and that helps create an equitable and adequate education for all kids across the state. Now, when our property taxes rise substantially like they have in recent years, sometimes we collect an overage for that account. Right now, that overage either sits in a savings account or actually goes back into the general fund. Instead, the Right Back Act is going to take that overage and it's going to flow it back down to pay down permissive mills on your county tax bill. That will create real relief while ensuring that we secure a really important part of our educational funding block. The second thing to discuss around education funding is actually two big bills we heard today on the House floor. The first is called the STARS Act. That's brought to us by Representative Lou Jones from Conrad, Montana. And the STARS Act is actually building on the TEACH Act, which was presented a few years back. This bill will provide quality educator funding. It will potentially infuse $60 to $70 million of new state funding into our school funding formulas and allow our schools to better pay for especially our starting teachers, make it more affordable to live in areas like the Flathead where housing costs have gone out of sight. It considers a lot of different things, but for schools that are hitting different markers as far as driving competency in the classroom, as far as paying starting teachers a more competitive wage, it's going to reward those schools with new quality educator funding. I know Flathead has positioned itself very well for the STARS Act. It's incredibly important to us that that bill does pass. So I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of that bill. I believe it crossed the floor today with 93 yes votes. It should be in good position to pass third reading and move to the Senate. The second bill that's being discussed around education funding is a little more controversial. It's called the MAPPS Act, and the MAPPS Act is a bill that looks a little bit more at universal choice. And choice is actually a fairly popular topic in the Flathead based on the outreach that I've received. This bill provides as much as $8 million in tax credits for families who are seeking to offset educational expenditures for homeschooling and for private school. So if potentially a family doesn't feel that the public school system is the right choice for their child, this could help them offset some costs. Proponents of this like the opportunities for competition, choice, and potentially being able to meet the needs of their families. Our opponents to that bill have very large concerns that this incentivizes disenrollment in our schools and potentially creates some fairness issues. This bill still has a long way to go. It did cross the floor today with 51 votes. I've supported it. I do have some concerns around it, but I think the overall principle makes sense that we would afford that amount when we are looking at infusing as much as $130 million into our public school systems here in the next couple years. So those are big considerations. Certainly not something that I've taken lightly. I have given a lot of thought through all of those bills. And we wanted to make sure you had an update on those three big bills that are going to be working their way through the legislature. I'll be back next week with an update. Thanks so much for tuning in.